So good evening, everyone. And first of all, I wanted to thank all of our friends at the Embassy of Japan and Kizuna Across Cultures for having me here tonight. I'm super excited to share my story with you all. So I thought I'd walk you through how my personal interest in Japan has impacted my educational and career journey, ultimately landing me in a corporate setting. And as you can see from my timeline here, it all starts back in 1995 in the last century. When I was a child, I was, of course, exposed to Japanese culture through all kinds of media and video games, things like Ninja Turtles and Karate Kid, probably like many of you. But the thing that really like stuck with me and resonated with me and enchanted me was the series called Sailor Moon, which I think after growing up watching many movies about like Disney princesses in distress, it was just refreshing to see this group of teenage girls and friends, and they're saving the world with cats. It was totally my jam and sucked me into Japanese culture. And to my 13-year-old brain, the best way to enjoy Sailor Moon even more would be to become fluent in Japanese. So that became a goal for me, wanting to experience Sailor Moon in the source language. I did not know at the time that Japanese is categorized as a level 5 difficulty language by the Foreign Service Institute, but it was probably good that I didn't know it. I had nothing to like hold me back or make me think that I couldn't become fluent in Japanese eventually. So, luckily at that time also, I stumbled upon a series called Irashai, Welcome to Japan, hosted by the gentleman you see at the thumbnail in the bottom. His name is Tim Cook, and he's actually a JET program alumni. So that's like a funny kind of other resonance with my own story. So, with a few episodes of Irashai under my belt, in the year 2000, I was lucky enough to be selected as a student ambassador to Japan for Atlanta Public Schools. And that was my first trip going there. I spent 10 days in Fukuoka, which is Atlanta's sister city in Japan. And I got to stay with a host family and really immerse myself in the culture for the first time. And it felt like a dream come true. And it also kind of cemented my desire to eventually become fluent in Japanese and learn more about Japan and work there one day. In the year 2000, I was a sophomore in high school, and kind of my interest in Japan also was the North Star for my college search. I wanted to make sure I found a university with a strong Japanese program, and Columbia University stood out to me for their Japanese scholarship and also because they were a feeder school into one of the best study abroad programs in Japan, which is the Kyoto Center for Japanese Studies, where Kasha also went. She's my senpai. So I ended up putting all of these little pieces together in my brain of kind of the plan to get me from Atlanta to Japan eventually. And everything fortunately fell into place. I enrolled at Columbia in the year 2002. So that was when I began my formal Japanese studies. And I was able to do the exchange program or the study abroad program in Kyoto for an academic year and racked up so many fond memories and also just like a sense of independence and confidence in myself to be able to like live this life independently in another country. So after coming back from study abroad, kind of still very focused on wanting to live and work in Japan, I enrolled in the JET program and began working as a coordinator of international relations in Nagano, which is a city in central Japan where they hosted the Olympics in 1998. And I think that job was actually a very ideal first job out of college because it forced me to tackle a variety of different challenges and build a number of different skill sets at one time. We're talking about interpersonal communication, intercultural communication, event planning, translation, live interpreting under pressure in both official and unofficial settings, working with government entities, working with community groups and children and the elderly, and public speaking in Japanese. So there was a lot that I was able to glean. I should go to the next slide. There was a lot I was able to glean from working in the JET program. And I think it was that experience and kind of the richness of the skills that I had developed that made me attractive to Google when I applied there for a role as an administrative assistant there in 2011. And so you're probably thinking like, okay, up until now, it's been Japan, 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 Japan. Where's the Google coming from? And to be honest, it kind of is a testament, I think, to like life gives you twists and turns. And for me, when I finished JET and after I had worked as a translator for a year, I kind of wasn't satisfied with the career opportunities I was having at the time. Not to mention, 2011 is the year that the big Tohoku earthquake disaster and Fukushima incident happened. And so I think I got a bit nervous and anxious and just thought, like, okay, I will go back to America for a while, see what kind of opportunities are available there, be closer to my family. But still, the interest in Japan was there for me. So I worked at Google in a role that was not directly related to Japan, but tried to find opportunities to stay connected to Japan through the JET Alumni Association and local sister city groups. And then I was fortunate enough to transfer to a role in the YouTube business org in 2015. And at that time, we were building our YouTube Kids app business as well as our YouTube Originals programming business. And both of those had plans for expansion to Japan. So I made sure that my two executives who needed to travel to Japan to help launch these businesses remembered that I was fluent in Japanese and I'd be happy to be their personal handler or interpreter anytime they needed to go. So they did let me go along with them for some of the business trips. And that's how I got to take a picture with Shimajiro down there below in 2015. And so between 2015 and now working at Crunchyroll, I think a lot of things happened. Obviously, 2020 happened, the pandemic, which kind of I think is a big time for all of us to reflect on, like, what do we want out of life? Like, how am I spending my time? What's most important to me? And I also became a mom in 2020. So that also kind of inspired a lot of reflection on like, how do I want to spend my time going forward? And it's funny because in 2021, I actually met with Kasha in part because I was having these thoughts of like I really feel like I want to do something more Japan related. How do I get back to that? And as you can see, it took a bit of time, but Crunchyroll, which was a company that had been on my radar for a bit, was acquired by Sony, which is here in Los Angeles where I live. And so once I heard that they had come here, I started kind of creeping on the job board, seeing if there was any opportunity that might be aligned with my skill set. And funnily enough, just this past January, after talking to coworkers about like, yeah, I'm looking for jobs at Crunchyroll, someone came to me and was like, Crunchyroll is looking for an executive assistant. Have you considered applying? So it was really like the stars aligned. And I feel very grateful to be here where I am today. And now going to Anime Expo, which is the picture you see on the right there, not just as an anime fan, but as someone who's working in the industry. So yeah, to kind of wrap things up in terms of tips for finding your own path, I think the thing that's top of mind for me is to like assert yourself, like make your interests and your competencies known. As I mentioned, like even in my experience, even if it wasn't like a job or a role that was related to Japan, initially, if there were any opportunities where connecting with Japan came up in my job, I made sure that my coworkers were aware that that was an interest and a skill set for me. And also, even if you can't visit Japan, seek out Japan at home through sister city organizations and your local cultural institutions, events, webinars like this, etc. Like with the internet, we have Japan is closer than it may feel like it is, geographically speaking. And then speaking of leveraging the internet, there's also all kinds of media where you can encounter Japan, whether it's like Crunchyroll or Netflix or social media. Like follow your favorite Japanese musicians and actors and talents and whatnot online. And there are, of course, online courses and apps and things like that too. And my last tip is to resume stock. Like if you come across someone who's working in Japan or working connected to Japan and you think what they're doing is cool, like go to their LinkedIn and try to figure out, piece together how they were able to do it and see what you can take and glean from that. So those are all the remarks I have prepared for now. Thank you again for the opportunity, and my information is listed below if you all would like to connect. Thank you.